So we can talk about the rise in the minimum wage from 800 leones to 1,200 and how is it calculated and why. So that's what we can talk in the show this morning. So minimum wage now, well, one for put on say the floor price, so you or the lowest amount of money we employer can pay in work. I mean for the work we don't do. I mean, so whether it for be on weekly, monthly, or you name it, or daily, so weekly and monthly. So that's now what minimum wage stand for. So the Minister of Employment, Labor and Social Security, Honorable Mohamed Raman Swari, be announced the new minimum wage will take effect on the 1st of April 2026 with 1,200 leones. I mean, if you convert that to dollar, it's around $50 to $54. And around with neighboring country, Guinea, Liberia, for Guinea, the minimum wage is about $63. And the Liberia, not that clear, but they're around $150. Some would say it's definitely like $5 something per day. And if you calculate, I mean, 30 days or whatever, it's about $150. And going through, I mean, for this is so interesting. Sorry, for the United States of America, it's about $7.2 per hour. Okay, so people in the work in America like 8 hours a day, and if you check out, it's close to $56 per day. So that's what we expect to deal with for the rest of the month in Africa. So reason why we talk about bringing all this for make we understand that we never expect whether it's a good news or it's something we for celebrate as a nation because it don't come up from 800,000 to 1,200, or probably it's supposed to pass this and look at waiting how things then they go now the market. And but another important thing again, how our inflation the drop. I think for now it would be something like a 5 point something. I mean drop. You don't come up from double digits and you don't go single digits for quite a long for the past 6, 7 months now, 8 months. You want for put on that way there and we don't hit single digits. So 1.2, 1,200 is gonna be our new minimum wage come 1st April 2026. Okay, so one for ask how they arrive at that particular amount there, the 1,200, and why. So that's what we'll be asking in the show this morning. Before we get a conversation, while waiting for a guest, don't be joined in the studio by Reginald Briano Jukutusaya. Good morning, and welcome to the Epic Morning Show.
Thank you very much, Evangelist Lee. Good morning. Good morning to listeners of the Epic Morning Show, and also good morning to the one that will watch you on Facebook as well.
I want to touch on this, very important. Somebody dropped me message this morning, and whether the person only listen to me, whether I just want to make a get the understanding of waiting to happen. And he was saying, when I really say the country book, I mean, people really enjoy festive season. People spend 1,500 for going to the Bamba or the show yesterday. What's your take so far?
Exactly. So I mean, look at well, I think in all the show, what even the last 2 days, you'll be no same every day. I think it's 100 people and pay 600 or 500 for 2 days. Immediately after that show, you get the Bamba Day, which was a 2 days event as well. You see a lot of people. I'll tell you, the traffic yesterday was towards this morning was so tense from Levuma. In fact, until Sugarland outside the program, a lot of traffic from pictures they were seen on status.
And imagine the cost now 1,500.
Exactly. So for a few hours, I would say for a few hours. I mean, people pay such money for go and just entertain themselves. It tells you one other man is say money they now we not get and all. But again, that is alone. I mean, sometimes when Saloma have do something, they go the extra mile for ensure say it do. But again, whether that in a wise or foolish investment, then I think say the tango can we definitely we go know as to that decision the way the individual make.
So why if people go the extra mile, according to what you say, forget 1,500? Why people don't go that same extra mile there? I mean, for put food on the table, and I just want for take for waiting this person. Then we blaming government each and every time they work no day. I mean, things are not going well. Why not using that extra energy like how we use forget that 1.5 day, just a day?
Sierra Leone are resilient people, yeah. A lot of people we go, and I mean, I know I'm for a lot of people we go out say, some man we don't begin for, like they say, some man don't begin for put, I think say for me they also update this, some man don't begin for put small things together and all, for ensure say he able for go entertain himself and go watch, yeah. Well, saying that again, that should be transformed into making something meaningful for you as an individual is also another conversation altogether, because again you get to look at the enabling environment. Are they the enabling environment? If yes, how accessible is this enabling environment and all? Because again, everybody really now except otherwise, but nobody know one for just they no more, they make efforts for the able forget, because we normally can say now plenty efforts. Now they basically make you get comfort. So you get for putting that kind of effort daily. And the country, most of you really survive now daily survival.
Yeah.
And all. If you want to know that, just check the money where they pay an individual for a month, and then you calculate the amount of money you spend per day. When you calculate how you know say your salary, in fact, not only they keep you for the entire month, and all. That is the magic way. I mean, we can normally say magic salary. You know, that's it's a mystery way we all know but understand how it basically can happen, and all. And it's difficult as well for make you see an individual go an entire day in Sierra Leone, except make your life meaningful. Go an entire day for the get a meal. I mean, for it, whether you get money in your pocket, but we basically, even though they can say some angry, but I think at some point you can share. So these are all things that we'll take into context when we get this kind of conversation. As a
journalist, you actually surprised, you be want for get more. I mean, when it comes to the minimum wage from 800 to that of 1,000, to you surprised at some point?
Oh yeah, I mean, you asked if on the increment, if I surprised.
Yes, the increment, yeah.
Well, yes, I would expect this basically for I would expect the minimum wage for God, because we know say the one I've been there before was way below the belt and all, and we're expecting it to be at such an amount where it will be kind of attracting to people and all. As to whether this new one as well, a kind of appetizing, it's a conversation altogether as well. But I think, yes, I would expect, to answer your question, I would expect the minimum wage will go up a bit, and we see 50% of that have already been added, even though it not take effect because the financial calendar, I think, can start in April or so. You know, but let's see how we definitely go.
Thank you very much, Reginald Brian Ojukutsaya. I don't be joined in the studio by Melvin T. Mansari. Melvin, good morning and congratulations.
Oh, thank you very much. Good morning to you and to Fambule.
Okay, so how the holidays so far? I mean, close to Christmas. How you don't view the city? What's not happen so far?
Well, for me, I always tell God thank you. Saying everything, give thanks for the fact that you get life, you get well body. You for contemplate on how ends will meet. At least let the kitchen pull smoke on that day or days before that. But I can think there's this lyrics I can always like this BNTM where the Nigerian singer they say every single day na holiday.
Yeah.
And that just ties to life is how you make it. Christmas, New Year's na one green day them. But how you don't make your life from January 1 to now, so you go for see the result to January 31. That not mean to say the favor of God and all this grace not going to be abounding over the course of time. So for me, yeah, not holiday, but every day na holiday left to how you pocket day. So if you pocket not day fine, Christmas go car and you know feel them. So that goes to why people need for be philanthropic, as I always can say, give back to your community if you get, give back to the poor if you get, and definitely I think to hear that they say to hear that much is given, much is expected, and blessed is the hand that giveth than the hand that taketh. But in Sierra Leone, we are all hands that are taken because of the economic situation. But that is not to say we don't have people that are well off by virtue of economy or status or any kind of way. So I think, say for me, making me think, I believe in the principle of Robin Hood. I will take from the one that will get past me for give to the one that will get past. And that has been my principle.
Thank you.
Holiday, no holiday.
Thank you so very much. I'll be joined in the studio again by Edward Yarime Kamara. I hope I get it right. The Deputy Secretary General, Sierra Leone Labour Congress. Good morning and welcome to the Epic Morning Show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me, and good morning to listeners and viewers.
Are you happy this morning?
Always.
Always happy.
Yes.
So is this a fair amount from 800 to 1,200 for workers across the country?
I go say if you take an exam, you get 50 mark, I wonder 50%. I wonder you go get that grade. If not university, the person will celebrate. So if you want to use the word fair, I go say because of we get 50% increase, it go far beyond fair.
You are representing the workers. Are you comfortable in this?
Good. We want the very best for every workman in the country. But we not to employers. They meet with we colleague employers. And as law provide, every 2 years we they meet, and then we they review the minimum wage. The review they comprise of the following bodies. We get Labour Congress, where they represent workers. We get the Employers Federation, where they represent all the employers them, or percentage of the employers them, but then are the most representative body. And then we get government. Interestingly, this year review, Labour Congress now we been get the chair.
Okay.
Then me have been the lead negotiator on behalf of the workers in this country. Then we get Employers Federation. Then self been get the person in the name of Ojo Collier. We represent the employers, and then we get government. We no less a person but the commissioner Sidon. So as per law provide, we're supposed to review minimum wage every 2 years.
Okay.
When that we don't fulfill. But if you say if we're comfortable, the answer is no. And when you look at our proposal initially,
I guess you the answer to the why. Why we're not comfortable? That's what you're answering to now.
good.
Okay, go ahead.
We initial proposal now being 2,700 leos.
Okay.
We will look at the ability for people to buy one bag rice. And then you look at the culture now. We first in a man they cook 2 days plus us, but now country we all don't involve. So man they even cook and serve 3 days. He puts on a freezer. So we'll take all those parameters: the consumer price index, the cost of living. We look at all the minimum wage across the sub-region and far. We say Sierra Leone at that level will be there $35.
That's $20. Yeah.
We've been saying necessary. Say in 2015, we've been negotiating and get minimum wage at $110. So our premise was $110 or better. So when we proposed 2.7, now in that background,
Okay.
for say yes, make we go back to where we're coming from, because in 2015 when we get minimum wage at $110, we have been 500 leos at that time. You realize say Ghana, Nigeria, and other parts of West Africa be far below that, to an extent that Nigeria been sent an invite to Sierra Leone, the Labour Congress, for go explain how we come about forget that particular amount. Unfortunately, Nami been going to Nigeria for able to tell them all the parameters are put together. Fast forward after 2015, you see say in 2018, the system change, government change, for let people understand. And when government change, the government been come with the pauper pattern. So they just bulldoze and announce minimum wage at 600.
Okay.
Without no negotiations between the JNNB. So we took it up. We go tell to the president, say, this idea wrong, that the Minister of Finance for announced minimum wage, that was JJ Safa by then.
Okay.
We also go meet them. Say, partner, you don't usurp with responsibilities, and not to you for announce them. Yeah. So that be make President Miguel for talk to we. He say he don't talk now public. He don't go to Parliament. We not stop there. We go to Parliament as well. We meet the former Speaker, Honorable Labas Bundu. We talk to him, and then we give you comfort that going forward, any time we minimum wage issue come up, if the Ministry of Finance want for go announce them, they go say no, not your responsibility. So we applaud them for that. And since then, the next minimum wage into where we do, which was in 2021, of course, the public will know that we experienced Ebola. So we will do a mild shift from 600 to 800. I'm just giving you the history.
Yeah.
So when we get to 800, you see Ebola come, the implementation date we shift time because the way the hotels and other business people they complain, we will get calls for shift time to an extent.
So by then, the Leones will don't begin to depreciate.
Yes, yes. So fast forward, the Minister of Finance, we meet him in 2023. We meet him for one of the reasons we meet him at the minimum wage. Of course, this will be acknowledging at the Ministry of Employment, Labor and Social Security. So that then follow that law, and we present the 2.7, as I tell you, but it's going to be negotiated. Okay. So the employer themselves put up another proposal, say 2.7, they're not able. We then look at all the circumstances where they happen around them business.
Okay.
And another thing, we look at government being the highest employer. We, in some other parts of the world, now the private sector, they employ more. But for Sierra Leone, now government, they employ more, you know. So that being...
that's the reason why some people could say, well, the 2.7 for the left, because government, they are the highest employer.
That be we wish. And one thing we are going to tell you, we make like me, we've been the lead. I always see in the social media, always you see government people and they dance, then they celebrate, now they party office, then they out. There's so many celebrations from this angle of government. So we should say government happy, government and comfortable. So if we're building, if you want to bring that happiness come back to the layman, then make sure you give them a befitting salary.
So which angle government looking from? Is it from the private sector, the concern where they raise, or probably the one for look at say, well, government's not their money?
Well, the opposing side, the strong opposing side in the conversation have been the Employers Federation.
Okay, that's the private sector.
Correct.
Okay.
When you look at them, and then, excuse me, you see, say, we premise we arguments on the something like, oh, say, the workers behind the wall. Because for we in a Labour Congress, almost all we membership, workers we unionize, as at that date, most of them, they get more than 1,000 salaries, all things put together. So for we will be CC, okay, the direct membership, those staff who are unionized, then they get other things them added to the basic. For example, when the basic was 800, there are workers where they get transport allowance, rent allowance, medical allowance. Just like what the minister say, if you put all those allowances together, some people they even jam 2,000.
2,000, okay.
Yes, but there are other sectors wherein, for example, the police, the military, the nurses, these are all government workers. The prison, the fire force.
Yeah.
Now where the minimum wage don't go 1, 2 so. Most of them go there and corner. They say, thank you, they can get increase. Because plenty of them they below 1,000 as basic.
All right, so we'll come to you later and can tell how we arrive at that 1,200. I mean, Melvin, we're at 1,200. Should workers across the country then supposedly celebrate?
Well, I was just looking at ILO and then standards, particularly a publication where they say it's on the minimum wage policy guide.
Yeah.
And yes, from a general face value, somebody go on for say it should be lauded, especially as per what is negotiated with the social partners, in this case the labor the Labour Congress and the employers. They are called social partners, particularly for the reason that it's not just a government thing, because it gets rippling effects on businesses and the economy. So, for example, back to your question, if somebody for celebrates, you go celebrate when you put them in the right context of what's the poverty line nationally and internationally, not alone. So once you get that poverty line, you get other indicators like productivity, you get indicators like inflation, and the general well-being of the economy, basically. So for answer your question, if somebody for celebrates, you go to celebrate whether it's commensurate to the cost of living of the worker, and not forget only ILO is not only talking about the workers, but and their families.
Yeah.
All right. So you ask 1,200 for the month for a worker and of a family of, let's say, one Boba, one Titi, and the Mami and the Pa. Is that commensurate? That brings us to the broader question. I think it's good that Mr. Edward is here as to what formula is used, because ILO is very concerned about whether countries are using a mathematical formula or what is called a complex formula.
That's a good answer to be short.
Of course, he's an expert in that. So
Okay.
if we can tell what formula is used, then we can be able to gauge basically that. But also there's another ripple effect, which has got to do the commensurate or equal effects on the wage bill. Okay, if you've increased the minimum wage, and governments always they talk about recruiting more, definitely it means say you are coming to add burden on the economy. And if you are adding burden on the economy in Sierra Leone, the economic context is huge. The concern now, although inflation has dwarfed, but the concern is the budget deficit. If you are having all these lofty plans for get more people recruited, and you've increased the minimum wage under whatever formula government will use and the social players, then it begs the question, where will this money come from when it comes to providing or financing the wage bill? That is a critical question, because if you are daydreaming around it, it will eventually lead to a situation wherein you cannot pay your workers. But there is a good side also to this, because for once, if you look at the government statements written one of the publications at the Ministry of Civic Education's website, Zachariah, the author there, is saying that government is not only now increasing it to that 1,200, but they are also extending the bracket now to involve the private sector. That's a whole theme. That's a whole theme when it comes to bringing in the private sector within this kind of arrangement.
And for now, they are starving the private sector.
Well, you get to be empirical on that. But from what we are seeing, if, again, the fiscal year begins January 1. So this is going to be rolled out in April. So it's not a fiscal, it's not within the fiscal, I don't know how to put it, basically. If you want to get a good gauge around them, somebody go ask why it not start January 1. But you get to use the first quarter of the new year, which is 2026, which is January, February, March. April. In fact, the opening of the second quarter.
Yeah.
So why? What is the rationale behind that? And of course, we know the budget runs within a fiscal year, so that will eventually maybe we get to see some supplementary for certain institutions where might recruit or promote or improve the conditions of the workers. So the source there is it's good for the worker and the family, but who pays the bill? Because when it comes to talk about the private sector, the Employers Federation, they will have their own concerns. Huge concerns. I mean, the chief negotiator on the side of the Labour Congress is here. Because at the end of the day, if you look at the labor law, for example, mining companies, it's the law said them for improve the conditions of the workers, but it's based on the available resources.
Yeah.
And what companies have always argued that governments can come with all this because they want to fulfill the political promise and meet the political needs of the people. So companies don't thrive by that. They thrive by profits, their cost of operation. If you can't get a minimum wage, where tomorrow they're not going to pay, what happens? It sends them into bankruptcy
probably you could rise some amounts of unemployment, begin cut down
So
in
there
staff as
are
well.
there are pros and cons to it, but I hope if we know what kind of formula they use and all this,
Before
because evidence based is what the ILO is talking about, and I don't know if this is evidence based, but Mr. Edward is also here. If you look at the ILO, they are very much focused on such measures should be taken based on evidence.
you talk about the 1,200, whether it's commensurate to the standard of living. Of course, as for now, within Liberia and Guinea, I mean, it's the lowest, 54 point something dollar. I mean, like Guinea, it's about $63. I mean, it's up. Let's look at one bag rice is about 650. How people therefore manage that 1,200 million?
It goes to statistics. There are benchmarks. The formula goes back to the formula. What are the things that they are looking at? Because the needs of the worker and the family, nothing way even the first convention, I think in 1927, had a disagreement on that. Then get everything called high priority needs, low priority needs, and all that. So it depends on the formula where they use, and that's where statistics come into play. Because you ever look at the GDP, you ever look at the GDP, then you get other economic indices then where you get for tie and two. But all based to what kind of formula is being used. There is complex formula and there is a mathematical formula. So what formula is used can answer that question.
All right, Edward. I mean, the ball that you cut now. I mean, 1.2 or 1,200. How will I arrive at the amount there?
Yeah, thank you. We put plenty indicators there.
Okay.
Like for one, the consumer price index. If you look for let you cook, you begin by charcoal, by palmine, and all the other things they for cook. Average Sierra Leone and we one cook. The least you go spend something 150.
So that plastic coal they talk about, so not
Correct.
bad.
Not too bad. But they look at the daily with the person sitting
Okay,
there at
daily.
the cook.
Okay.
If serviceman just decide say I can't cook one pot, we look at all the analysis then they. We look at the cost of living. Say this money you can't give me so. Waiting really go buy. Then we'll find out, say, okay, this money go buy one bag rice. So say one bag rice don't come out inside the minimum wage. The current minimum wage of 800, they know they buy one bag rice, so they buy half. So we look at that. Then, of course, Melvin talk, ILO get one concept in negotiation, ability to pay. When you go into negotiations, now I make them say, let we do all kind investigations, all kind research. At the end of the day, you come with that premise, they say, you able to pay. So I need agree, you don't reach you. Then another thing we're very crucial in that particular discussion, now the job creation. How many people will get a job because of the minimum wage? Or how many people will lose job because of the minimum wage? So put all in then at the table. I remember when we started the negotiation at 2.7, the employer then would say 900. Now so we're not beginning it. So we say 2,000 from 2.7 we can on to 2,000. Right there, we get small business system. We begin send message to we now the WhatsApp go po open. May I get 20 workman? So if now they move the minimum wage to 2,000, you automatically say I go left with 10. So are we going there to negotiate minimum wage? We go put people in a job? The answer is no. Because the more people get working in this country, the more circulation of finance in the economy.
One thing before we go further, one thing I'll go categorically say the honest truth. When the minimum wage will be 800,000, I'll tell you, people in this country, where they pay below the amount there. It be plenty.
I go agree with you.
Thank
Perfectly
you.
correct.
People in the way they pay, and
Correct.
you want to ask, what is the within the Ministry of Labor be done they do in terms of monitoring and how we get for monitor this? Because when you talk about people there for cut down on staff, it might be some genuine concern, some may not be genuine at some point.
Yeah, you're right. You see, I'll tell you outrightly, when we go into negotiations, with biggest concern can always be government. Because one, if you look even the nurses, you go to the hospital, there are many government sectors we've they paid and staff them below the minimum wage. One such company, one such institution have been Slag. Slag is one big government research institution, but they paid and staff them below 800. It takes the union pressure, Labour Congress back up the union for let them go above 2,500 now. So it is but true that yes, whenever the minimum wage day, people in the way they beat time. So we take all that into consideration. Of course, if you look at the inflation, the book inflation, where government they say is about 5%, as compared to within at the reality, we've been silent time. You understand? You know, so the situation of Ministry of Labor not being the position for monitor then different institution and they or employer where they pay below 800, it can be at a point where you see within at the strength, the manpower, the needed logistics where they need for do their work, you know, they face serious challenge. It's only now that we see then self don't recruit more people because the law give them right for able go to every institution and go check. They can just come to this place, for example, then say, may we see on a voucher for see whether una they implement the minimum wage of 800 now that you don't go 1-2. Then get all those things. But I'll tell you, Honorable Soiree and somebody who trust, I respect him. All this while we don't then supposed to be one result. So him being the minister for this particular one, I trust you now enforce minimum wage. We insist as minister. I believe say go on for enforcement because now the good thing is that the Employment Act we just enact, the Parliament just enact after the development by the JCC. Then they give stringent measures for somebody we not implement the minimum wage. So that's again get for come out to the public for no say if you don't pay the minimum wage with the law say now this not the fine. Once it is proven that this person they paying workman them below the minimum wage, so then they get. But another thing we can happen now silent negotiation behind the scene. Sometimes employer no really say now 800. I'll give that scenario now for the security sector. Then the man employ a security tell and say the law say I for pay you 800, but no go below. I go give you 600, 700. So until that young man we want this job, he don't do all this while he not get job. He take her. You know they even go report. Now when it comes to parting, now they say the report now say this man not be the pay me correct.
600 will be paid.
Yes, but you the employer now you stand for loss.
All right, so
because if we know we calculate the benefits with the 800 from the say when the person begin work.
All right, so we'll go back to one. You talk about few indicators. One, I talk about food. I mean, basic how person they cook. I mean, on a daily basis. One day, I mean, they spend about 150. And look at what we take gonna look at so far.
As I tell you, the issue of job creation. If we peg this, if we tower as at that time, say 2000, the one that we get job right now, most of them is for us.
So we now look at basically not just food stuff or food items.
No, not the country. So
Okay,
now we
continue.
look at the World Bank index on poverty. They say $2 a day. Now you consider say this man poor. So that now be another thing where we premise. So if you look at the minimum wage where we get, where you check the daily pay, they're above $2. We take all that into consideration. Because now if you look at 1.2, the number of days we're supposed to work in this country are 22 days.
22 days, okay.
So you divide them, you get something like 54.5. So go round up to $55 per day. So we look at all 55 leons. I suppose that the new leons we talk about. Yes, 55 leons. So you look, say 55 leons, somebody can just wake one morning, you go down corner, you buy cookery in the morning, you buy in the afternoon, and then you survive. So we look at all that again. For say yes, when we get a minimum wage, let we make sure say the daily amount the man will consider for people for able to use that money for able to get things for it. Yeah, of course the cost of living. We look at basically those of us where they work. We find it very difficult for me to demands. Now just ways and means. Sometimes we for ask myself say, me then they pay me 3,000, but my expenditure say for 2 weeks in more than 5,000. There comes the goodness of God. Because sometimes you can imagine how this happened. You know, and when you look now, the government side now, we also premise on that again in that. we look say government as at when we dey go into the negotiation, the lowest paid person at government been get 1,010 leons. The least paid
A government.
na government.
Okay.
So we say, okay, if government dey at this particular level, then they get plenty employers. Just from waiting Melvin talk, a look about the ripple effect, the shift will get for happen. Because in the negotiation, they may get somebody from Africell. We represent the Employers Federation. He presented a very brilliant argument on what they go mean when the minimum wage they add from 800, they add another 400 leons. He do that analysis there. And the table will somehow get what you call reasonability. We don't go into negotiation with a mindset. We go into negotiation with an open mind. And you begin to see the reality of the other side. So when they presented the analysis for say, this now budget, we wage bill for the year.
Yeah.
If this 400 go on top, now this you go mean. And then we begin look at the other things the way government people and they don't like. For example, those who are doing business. You look at the tax we government they levy on them. You look at the cost of doing business. These are all parameters who analyze the cost of doing business. Even unanaya, if una do business with electricity, trust me, the company or the institution not going to get savings for increased salaries. But if I do business with electricity, it's agreed, they get some savings. Those were all presented on the table.
Melvin, I remember the World Bank report recently. It talked about the private sector. When it's a concern, if a country therefore excel or succeed, it therefore boost in private sector. I mean, how do we go past this? Because Edward rightly say, then are the people that will appeal more than made this no reach Usai reach. Sir.
I think the government need for adhere to liberalization standards. The government cannot, quoting the words of Mr. Edwards, pauperize when it comes to dealing with the forces of the markets or its players. You cannot. It's a liberal thing, and you really expect that employer for go pay amounts of money we pull, we invest, and we profit in order nothing after for make for himself. So it's a liberal kind of process. But again, the World Bank is saying government for take decisive measures. Yeah. Is this one of the decisive measures that will aid private sector involvement in bailing out the economy? That's going to be a skeptical question, very skeptical, and it boils to who is speaking: the social players, the union, or the government. Who is speaking, and who that get the stake? At the end of the day, government always is in this quagmire of, well, you make it too hard for the private sector, they are folding up. And when they fold up, like the case of Corridor Holdings, it's a classic, low-cost classicus for 2025.
Yeah. As
to how government can go about when it talks about making business climate comfortable. And mind, this is one of the MCC benchmarks. And what the World Bank report is saying is there is a need for more inclusivity and consultation. And I'm glad maybe what I established the context here.
We get so you are because we get arguments on this corridor holdings, and we are one of few people that we look at corridor holdings that we are doing fine up to 2015, 2016, and things begin go down for them by 2021, 20, and then they begin get issues with them, staff them. And I was having a conversation, and the person categorically tell me, say, if you're not an employer, if you will take care of your staff, them.
No, that is too simplistic. The employer they take care of his staff based on economic indicators. If your operational cost too high, how can you take care of your staff? If inflation is over the roof, how can you take care of your staff? If taxation is too burdensome, how can you take care of your staff? It's not a simplistic silver bullet kind of thing. It's a complex balance you get for keep between keeping businesses alive, but keeping workers and their families satisfied, and also having the right regulatory framework. I mean, sometimes it can be manipulated, and I'm glad the way my brother don't make a very for the employer. The basic rule we give an exemption. Now the ability to pay. that can be justified in many ways. If you get you technocrats in your company, we're good at that. You mentioned Afrisel. Then get top-notch administrators. They will mount a case where you go out for refute. So that is just one side. But I mean, the other aspect where I think so for look at, you don't ask a very pertinent one where I think say scholars therefore really research on whether this increase in the minimum wage will indulge more of private sector involvement in the economy or will divulge it. That can be a whole question. But the secondary aspect in my thinking is, with the new minimum wage at 1,200 and the government making a socio-political promise of creating 500,000 jobs, will it be proportionate? Government will be achieving dream with 500,000 jobs with this kind of minimum wage, or will this minimum wage not dwarf the government's intention of 500,000 jobs? I think the technocrats need for come up with evidence-based analysis.
In your view, you think that we'll get more employment than other from unemployment?
If it's called compliance. If the compliance rate is high, it might mean that we might. But if the lack of compliance is also, because those are things where the ILO talk about. The ILO, they're not follow. They're not say whether they make some of these conventions and some of these things. People are never get for comply and not will comply. So if you have a judge in success, get for be with the utter compliance. Almost of these companies or employers generally go before comply. Based on the compliance rates, you go before do a forecasting. But if the number of, let's say, less than 50% of the employers that are in comply, it shows that the policy action is not working. So can you say it will advance the government agenda or it will retrogress it? So these are all, they should be evidence-based, not to sensation, not to hype, not to political rhetoric. These are evidence-based. These are things that where you get parameters, where you put all together and arrive at this. So now I make where we lost say, we review the minimum wage every 2 years. You get critics where they argue that the frequent adjustments of the minimum wage itself gets impact on employers. That's a other literature where they different, where other schools of thought then they argue. But for Sierra Leone, I think the thrust here is between the government and the employers, and federation and government, is the fact that government understand that the poverty level is not equal to what people and they get, be they working for government or private sector. We should celebrate government for that. That is called sensitive governance. Government sensitive, whether it's under the Labour Congress pressure or whether under employers pressure, but it means that there is a need for be sensitive to the needs of workers and their families. Whether this is high or low, which is the fundamental question, I think this is still low. This minimum wage is still low. Whether it will be palatable for employers, I don't think so, because they will have a lot of arguments, because government not cut enough in other taxation sectors for give them a reprieve or a relief in terms of employers and waiting and spend panel businesses.
All right, Edward, quickly before we come up on the phone line, make we get people and take on this. I mean, a lot of people go scared of the job. Like you talk about, say, if this be the 2,000, people go cut down on 50% of the one they don't employ. I mean, how are they willing? Are they willing to comply?
I would tell you outrightly that whatever we don't agree on will be implemented, and would expect employers them for comply.
Okay.
That's why we'll be very
not expecting for comply.
Economical.
Not expecting for comply.
Yes.
Okay.
I use the word expect them because I will tell you, in the world of work, every worker in this country, we belong to a union, get what we call collective bargaining agreement. Indifferent from fixing of minimum wage. The collective bargaining agreement, for example, if you're a journalist with a battle now as to which collective bargaining agreements applicable to UNA, whether it should be services or it should be post and telecoms, the nature of job. So in those collective bargaining agreements, away from the minimum wage, which is 1-2, there are laid down allowances with the Employment Act creates for. For example, transport, rent, medical, leave, all the one, and if they add them to this minimum wage of 1.2, for example, in the telecoms, the least transport where the worker they get now something like 600 leons. We use the worker fine arrangement. Tell you in town.
You know, one thing I don't want to use the word scary, but not confirm. We use the word if, and I mean, say not certain. Why?
I use the word if. I hope. Just give me a reminder on the particular phrase.
Yeah, you say if the minimum. I mean, you get other allowance. If, I mean,
now the other allowances we did na the Employment Act. All workmen in this country covered with the Employment Act.
So if they meet up to that demand, that's exactly what you say.
No, it's a must. The minimum wage now.
But it's just a if they meet up to that day, then we get 600 loans for transport, and you want for quality. If
I will let you understand that.
Or I will just want for clear that if, because you know.
No, okay, maybe it's an oversight.
Okay,
so let's look at the transport.
Everybody
But one forget confirmation
about availability of resources.
Make we understand.
So let's look, for example, the public utility. We cover port, Seratel, post office, electricity. The young CBA, no workman not the Naden company and they work also, where they pay below 1,200 none. Even the clean and a post office. In basic salary is above 1,500 leons. So it means then they are way from the minimum wage on a 1.2. Unfortunately, then they get neglect, and they suffer neglect from the main employer in our government, both Seratel and post office. Then they go for months without salary. But these are not good examples.
So don't pay attention to the other allowances there, because
so the other allowances there now. If, for example, they don't tell you, say you leave allowance for the year, now 15% of your annual basic. They don't tell you, say you medical for the year. We say every month you are entitled to 600 leons as medical within the add now your salary. They don't tell you, say you rent for the year. Every month, then they put 540 leon now your salary. When you add all the one in the
plus your
gross plus your transport,
we 600.
Correct.
Okay.
You put all together, you see you gross they reach up to 2 point something. Plus or minus, you take home pay the day above 1.82 thousand. So we are aware of that for those workers we the collective bargaining agreements applicable to, and we know. Because sometimes the workman they don't know see any south the work they're supposed to give me transport allowance. They don't know see they're supposed to get rent allowance. Now what can get them privilege how they talk with on the listing, now they can go to office to we say, hey man, I so sad the work who CBA we cover me. So this is something we is specialized. We do it every 2 or 3 years as well. So the minimum wage, as we say, that 1.2 as the minister talk other things then they add to them. When they don't call so. But mind you, those allowances then they vary. The allowance when they begin at mining, it go different from the allowance when they begin at telecoms. Because you look in the telecom sector, you look in institutions like the Orange of Secutel. When you go into negotiation with them people, then they will not can get too much argument for agree into something because of the ability to pay. Where when you look institution like post office for go into negotiation with Orange. You understand? You begin to see problems. So technically, the ministry or the JCC, where they advise the minister, don't think and wise. Let we separate some people them. You will not get the ability to now this sector we put you there. You will be able to argue with this person. We do a rearrangement of the CBA for make sure she will not get straight.
Quick one, everyone for open the phone line. I mean, this seems to be a sweet deal. At the end of it, all the allowance then they are we added to the minimum wage. It seems to be a sweet deal.
It's not across the board. You hear from what you say. It's a case by case study. It depends on the institution you work for. And how they're able for pay. So if you go work in an institution when a Magbana, now the Magbana floor price now you go based on them productivity as the corner. So for some people they go say it's sweet, but for other people way their own bracket or then threshold they way below, it makes no much difference rather than what's not the minimum wage. But again, like I say, it's about the criteria and the bracket where you find yourself, or if you are in the level of government, you get government get several cater them by you cater where you dey definitely na so you allowances then they so it vary from case to case, but generally like I say we all for agree that for the fact that the government get the sense and the other social players that okay let something go up for people for workers and then conditions and then family. I think so that is sensible. Whether it's enough, I don't think it's enough. Whether much consultation can be done, that is dependent on level of compliance, and we hope. I mean, but I'll be very, very diplomatic in comments when they talk about the expectation. The expectation is for compliance, but again, we don't see case of non-compliance. We don't cause serious problem, and I don't want to belabor the point with corridor holdings, but this is the right way to go, and unfortunately not so January they take effect, and it would say April. I don't know if that's not the independence gifts where the government want for give or let the country give, but what I hope no more than go lift
so
other bans
probably yes. I see one for answer. Why April?
Yeah, one clear that. If you look the minimum wage, May 1 last year, we get May Day celebration. President talked eloquently about the deplorable minimum wage. A reference different parts of the world, and then make declaration that the minimum wage negotiation for resume now and for ensure we do something for the workers of this country. So the minister straight away go into action. Whilst, just imagine in May 2025, now President make the declaration, then we only get 7 months down the line for concluding negotiation. So the ups and downs and all the other things, and when we meet now, the employer then say, this thing by this time we don't conclude, so most of us don't do a budget, and in January we know we no see this the calm, so no make no provision in our budget for this one, so give us allowance 3 months inside the new year, let we do another, so it has to do with budget. So the employer then present, and I tell you this negotiation will do now one of the very critical negotiation, because we get employers who
I think this get for some amount of political gain. I mean, the president gets plenty thing for talks to achieve when it comes to Labor Day.
No, we'll get into him. Interestingly, when he make the declaration and all what he say, we give this to him for say kudos to him, because really
I think it's about economic interest. The employers are very, very strategic. By April, you don't know the first quarter. You're able to ascertain whether you can comply or not.
Correct.
So it's we not for celebrate entirely it until we see the end of the first quarter and how this will be.
Because that's basically say they expect them for compliance.
And the business people in a not to sensation, not to politics in a profit making. So you get to count the cost. So that excuse they all would be
that come in again. You see, what you say is perfectly correct. But I make we understand this. The minimum wage you don't announce them. There are things where the employers raise as concern. Taxation. So the Labour Congress don't do a letter now to the Minister of Finance for say the cost of doing business, the taxes we levy on employers and the workers, we need for review.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so very much. When you call, go straight to the point and stay within 1 minute. Hello, good morning. All right, the Lion, go ahead.
Allah help in this country.
Okay.
The law way too good on. Now for Canary do and always now for impress the internationally, but in the ground. But where they work now on site, even to the last year to the Lebanese, they now in. But months they meet months. Months they meet inside company months. But the way how Salomon they suffer between them two, that Lebanese, Indians, the way where Salomon they suffer. And one thing where how they make now, you already can say that then are the managers then. When are the Leone and when are the managers then? But they treat Salomon. But it tell like say I don't know how for talk, and when they go there, they tell you say what did happen? The police or the government, then they inside their pocket. So you know what they talk, how Salomon they suffer, right? It's so pathetic. The man they so where she on this so. Tell me the way where they pay them, but it past 10 or 15 man or 20 man salary. Where she don't so your salary where they earn. Salon, the one the way they would have something at 10 or 15 man salary that one day.
Okay.
So,
Thank
you know, what's in the talk, what's in the apple, it's so different. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. 07994994993, not the number for be part of the Epic Morning Show. I mean, a lot of things taken into consideration. Log online again. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Your name is where you call from, please.
This is Abakar from Fono.
Bakal from X. Go ahead.
Let God bless the issues we try to discuss. You understand? Now just get similar story to the one small brother where they work to India man. They don't work under that India man they for over 10 years. They set up, take the oil and get camera and load them put, then take the oil and put them at the domot. But at the end of the day, what happen now? Na fact and second because of the benefits with them for jam. We go na labor, go na their side and the oil. When the labor with the people they win at the India man and the sleeper, you will go to case man at train and the TV. Then they see we work as them into wicked way. Look the kind way how we people them, and then the man is there. Then they take the young people away. Then a jail man then another side and carry them go put them and then shop them here. Then they take the important parts with the ordinary people away. Now with the thought.
All right, thank you so very much. Now we pay attention to the minimum wage from 800 to 1,200, and make we talk within this mean whether it's a progress or we still do with it and no improvements no make. So let's stay around that conversation there. Yeah, hello, your name is call from. Good morning.
Yes, sir. How do you morning, sir?
Fine. Your name is call from, please.
My name Santos. I call from Wellington Street.
All right. The minimum wage from 800 to 1,200. What now you take on that?
Me they work as security. I they work for.
I'm afraid we get issue with our line there. And 079994993. We call. Now we talk about the minimum wage from 800 to 1,200. And when now you take as a Leone, you think there is improvement. You think this like a fair deal for workers in the country. Let's stay around that conversation there. I know people get personal issues, but let's stay around that conversation there. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Julius Hyman Lee.
Concerned citizen. Good morning.
God bless. Good morning to Melvin and the guests. Even greetings to all.
Okay.
To the guests, they talk about government make increase of minimum wage from 800 to 1,200, 400. But feel say that increase the government make small. Make I just draw you attention. Recently, the phone company make increment on them data or megabytes from 60,000 to 100,000. So for just a week, you spend 400,000 for buy data. You need other. You need the ordinary callback you get for buy because not all man they use smartphone or other phone. Away from that, government may say then they harmonize the salary. What that don't do for the harmonization of salary? I get me concerned, thank you.
Thank you so very much. I mean, salary harmonization for the past 2 years now. Well, we don't know how they as per now, but this is so much important. People use money for the plenty things on a daily basis. But for me to get take a look at which you cook per day in according to Labour Congress, well, 150,000. So on that line, they look at one bag rice. I mean, so we'll go online again and pick another call. Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Your name and the side you call from, please.
Okay. This is Pabala the talk.
All right, Pabala, go ahead.
Waiting me on anxious is that cause and effect. What is causing the high cost of living? This is what we must address. If it's production, if it's food, we pay attention to the food side. We bring down the cost very low. The productivity in-house, we can be able to handle that. If not rental, we bring down rental properly within the reach of people, then that is government. All these are government issues.
Okay.
We not just the businessman, he want to make profit, but we can reduce that profit. We can handle the thing internally, the cause and effect. That is my point. Let us look what are the causes of this, the high rate of inflation, so much the cost of living will go up. If we look at properly and address them nationally with seriousness, we can address all these issues. That's my point.
Thank you so very much. And 079 994 993, that number for be part of the Epic Morning Show from 800 to 1,200. I mean, what's your take? Hello, go online again. Hello, good morning.
Good morning. I'm from Central.
Oh, I said it from Central. Go ahead.
I want to understand. And ask the man from Labour Congress, you see, normally for announce the minimum wage na parliament area. But this one is not like the government actually no affected because last year and so glad deep and this year that about 1 million so somebody that it's like the workers affected by this because if they be affected they don't factor into the budget. If we read the Minister of Finance because of the increase in the labor wage and so money government will make provision for the wage bill that was not done. It just kind of more up and was it again the minister got to go announce minimum wage. We know very well say as the labor man say some man they get for downsize the workers because go put price for people there. They go decide say if I get 10 people I will reduce them by 5. I will take that money there add another 5 so that this will go before. I mean some of these things they might do me I'm able to understand. If it affects the believe me they will not put that at the budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much. 079 994 993, the number for be part of the Epic Morning Show. Is this a fair deal? I mean, from 800 to 1,200. Look, good morning.
You see the logic and the imperfection of this government in logic. Now they say minimum wage, you add them by 50%. For God's sake, who send this government to add salary by 50%? We're realistic. Because they know say this minimum wage are just announcements no more. They know they didn't follow for let people and then pay them money then they. Then they go say 50% minimum wage. But you as a government now, who say you don't add for you workers them 50%. Now they tell the private man say let go add 50% for workers them. Now fair thing and they. You know fair. And for say you determine people and sufferness by one great event because they go pay 1 million for my then program. So my enjoyment that day. Una check una records and clear. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. It's 079 994 993. We'll take 2 more calls and try to wrap the 4th segment of the Epic Morning Show. Logo line. Hello, good morning.
Ivan, good morning.
Commander Jibo, good morning.
Ivan, may God go put you inside heaven and Epic Radio so far.
Amen.
Ivan, for me, ask question, but me they can answer the question. I will see the minimum rate from 500, 700 to 1,200. For me, a good news. I want to say bravo to the government of Sierra Leone. But in only limit today, I will let government monitor, especially who brother where they now the labor. Ivan, all things hard in the country, but still Saloma they collect 500,000. No way. Ivan, I want to tell you this morning. You want your market to pull up, they no buy. You better pass to your market. So people that they bear the pain for collect 500,000, my brother, because there is no way for both. Something that they will not discuss on the radio. And people that then are them private institutions, they don't go talk, saving a 500 and they pay no, then they kick you out. The man that die, they go die.
Right.
So from 700, from 800 you go to 1,200. Me Commander Jibo, I say bravo.
Thank you.
Because even when government will say 800, still some people they collect 500, 600, 700.
Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much, Commander Jibo. You don't, exceed the time. We'll take one last caller and try to wrap the 4th segment of the Epic Morning Show. Logo line again. Hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Evan.
Good morning, Namta.
Thank you very much, my brother. I want to plenty thank you. The panelists, maybe. First and foremost, I listen to brother Lamin 50% of 800 na 400. So now 50% agreement government do. Check you mathematics well. First and foremost, we recommend the government for whatever little they increase. They say if a loaf is better than no. They don't do. We commend them for the increment, but the money not do. Considering the cost of living. So whatever little effort man make, commander, then you urge and back say, I don't try, but una add more, you know, do. People they live on magic in this country. That may come from Boku, my brother. That may come from Boku. That 1,200, a final from last start in January, but till April under, it's still far. But I recommend now, then do more present. You need for put this money to 2,500 safe. They will manage minimum wage. Then please, we don't Labour Congress because we don't get problem. We don't sick in charge of border there at all. We don't get good bill. All the workers them always the credit Labour Congress because the people in the breadwinner that are the allegations with the allegation.
Thank
so
you.
So we type of fact for a company, salute them for the good of our country and for Bambai for the place. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. I will not take any more call again. Melvin, you don't listen to the callers. I mean, concerns are there. I mean, to continue whether if this is fair deal or not. You think will be response to the callers?
I think we agree from, I want to tell callers then, thank you, and the listeners, thank you. It's clear that the consensus view now that people commend the action, but still we agree also that the increase is low. And I think to the point where I is many people are not echo we therefore do it why not take effect January 1 when at the start of the fiscal year. And that is owing to the fact that within somebody the old theory that because it does not affect government directly per se, but it does because governments can never go below those standards. I sense this growing resentment on, of course, there is this concern about compliance where me go and keen about looking ahead. How will compliance be monitored when it actually eventually come into effect? And what happens in the case of lack of compliance? Are we going to see employers being punished? And how will those mechanisms pan out? But of course, as a Sierra Leonean, I can feel so bad we may country people and they complain in the hands of, well, not all Lebanese in their manner foreigner, but most of them are. And by virtue of that, I think say if we get a local content policy, it not just get for do with institutions, but it deal with the workforce itself should be protected when it comes to local content. And I agree, many of them cases of abuse of workers' rights, they are aided and abetted by people who are indigenous Sierra Leoneans. And I think say this will stop. And that's where I want for beseech the Labour Congress, the Ministry of Labour and the commissioners for make sure that, you know, let Saloma suffer and come be Saloma and that is reasonable. But you know Saloma, you know Salo, you suffer at the hand of somebody that is maybe of not a Sierra Leonean descent. This is not xenophobic, but this is just the nationalistic reality that we don't depend this for too long. You know, we need radical actions. You India man, no go with all due respect, they are contributing to the economy. But see where Saloma no go do now India. Elect that India man in any can put bread now with mouth. We not for tolerate them from her. See where Lebanese man no go do now shattered Lebanon. We not for tolerate them for happy now. You know, and these are things where these are growing injustices where they happen in our workplaces. We get several other far-reaching effects, psychologically, socially, and otherwise. It's so disgusting.
Okay.
And I hope that authorities then will look at some of them complaints there and make sure that action is being taken. And lastly, I think with this kind of conversation moving towards the new year, doing it take effect on the start of the year, I think we the governance architectures are working no matter what you say. And yes, I will concur that the amount low and it should be increased because the cost of living so high and enforcement modalities will be put in place so that people can go pay this money if they're able for pay. And government therefore keep fingers across on this probability cause, which is, and somebody make a brilliant say look for examining the cause and the effects of this. That goes to evidence base and also government self and the union for keep their fingers crossed, because at the end of the day, if the employer is not able for pay, then towards what end? So we all for the open pray and fast, as the case may be. For let this be realistic.
Thank you so very much, Edward. Quick one.
Yeah, I'm going to the last caller for say we self-commend President Bio at least for let we open the dialogue and we get this increment The comfort why they give to the public now that whilst we they conclude, we all na the panel, the GNNB, the board agreed that the next minimum wage will be 2027 go be discussed under the parameter of living wage.
Okay.
We mean say somebody for able get money for take care of himself and if able save small thing, we work towards that. Another thing we able identify from waiting we got about cost and effect. We know they say the cost of doing business, the taxation. So we don't get the responsibility now Labour Congress for engage government for ensure say do ya the taxes we you they put look for example GST. If we imagine and they bring pay GST from Wataki to the shop to use self for the go for go buy. The workman they look at the tax on leave allowance, the tax on end of service benefit, the threshold for PAYE. These are all things so they try for deal with for meet up the April. Because maybe by the time they reach April, government go to announce the threshold safe when at 600, it don't move up. Because what's not be with arguments that I would accept 1.2 if it be tax free. So that conversation that they start in April, sorry, in January, we don't send we letters them, we go down that conversion. Then by the time they reach April, government will make another declaration, we will make people. No, we are not.
Thank you.
Even if they don't announce something, they can carry another paper.
Thank you so very much, Edward. And that of Melvin for that. We actually don't go out of time.